this movie really wanted you to believe, or at least the marketing campaign really wanted to make you believe that this was a Peter Jackson movie. No, it's a Peter Jackson's production. What am I talking about? The latest YA flick, Mortal Engines. Directed by Christian Rivera, who is either uncredited or very credited, but he has worked with Peter Jackson in the past on the Hobbit trilogy, on the Lord of the Rings stuff. This is really his directorial debut, and we go thousands of years into the future where cities no longer exist, an apocalypse has happened, landscapes have been destroyed, and how the world works is we have moving cities and countries and towns. So everyone's really on these motorized towns. So literally a whole town is set on wheels. And we see the intricacies of how it works. And in between it we have London with our London going around trying to take resources to power the mobile city, and eventually a bad guy by the name of Valentine, played by Hugo Weavings, decides that they need more resources, so we have to penetrate this, we have to move east and take over someone else's stuff, and this is a lot of boring. As you would expect from a Peter Jackson production, the production value is insanely well done. The visuals in this movie are amazing. Unfortunately, none of the characters are. Wow, the main character, Hera Shaw, is a trying to exact her revenge on Valentine for something he had done in the past to her. And she's not that interesting along the way. She meets someone who's part of the historical guild by the name of Tom, who is, once again, not an interesting character. And unfortunately, that's what this movie suffers from the most. No one is really interesting. Other than the production value, there is really nothing to keep you awake in this movie, as you really don't care about them, because while we do get Hester's, or I should say, yeah, Hester Shaw, while we get Shaw's background throughout the whole movie, she's not that interesting. No one is, because no one is given time to develop, and it feels like a rush. I really enjoyed the opening sequence where you see London going after a bunch of small cities or towns, and you see it devoured and how the innards work. Like I said, production, you can tell this cost $100 million, and it absolutely looks it. Unfortunately, there's nothing of substance. This is based on a YA book that Peter Jackson had bought almost a decade ago. He bought it in 2009. And I can see and it's very sad to see that him and Fran Walsh, who also adapted the Lord of the Rings trilogy to the movies, they did the same thing for this one, and they really should have knew what to change in this movie. The only interesting character in this movie is a person by the name of Shriek, who is an undead robot who goes on a personal mission, and his scenes are badass. He has an action scene in a floating city that is really good, and every time he comes on screen, he's demanding attention. Unfortunately, his plot line shouldn't have been in this movie, because it was just too much being thrown at you. There's not a lot of information, but there's a lot of characters who either don't get fleshed out, they're not very interesting, or just one-dimensional characters. Hugo Weaving as Valentine is literally like, well, we need to go over there to destroy stuff because we need energy. But this character, Strike, he's pretty cool, he's badass in every scene he's in, and then his storyline kind of just ends with, wait, what? And yeah, this is a beautiful movie to look at. if you are going to watch this movie, watch it big, watch it in IMAX, watch it in 3D. You will have a blast just looking at it because it is gorgeous, but there's nothing else in between. This is a huge miss for Peter Jackson, or at least, you know, being a producer, because he didn't direct it. And maybe he needs to go back to doing something in a smaller frame. Do something like Frighteners again, you know, until you can get what you want. You can tell this movie takes a lot from anime, or at least the source material does, because it has Howl's Moving Castle in it with the whole, you know, city on tracks and stuff. The Sky City was very reminiscent of Castle in the Sky, both Miyazaki movies. And yeah, that's it. This is a movie you're going to need some caffeine to stay awake in. Because other than looking at the backdrop, there's not much in the way of characters. I will say this one thing. The main character had a defect that I thought, while they don't give it away in the trailers and in the marketing material, because you only see this much of her, she has a defect that should have been the defect for Artemis in Ready Player One, where Artemis just had this like little splotch of like pinkness on her eye. This character actually had a real defect, and not that it differentiated her from anything else, but at least it was something to be noteworthy. And yeah, that's my review of Mortal Engines. I give it a 4.3. Production design is the only thing that carried this movie. Even Hugo Weavings couldn't save this movie, so yeah. That's all I have to say. Are you going to see Mortal Engines? Let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and bye. Next time.
Bound to your side, I'm trapped in silence. Just a